Um, okay, so we can get started. We've got we're up to 46 and growing, so I think we're good. So thanks everybody. Thanks for joining us. I'd imagine everybody on this call has a busy schedule, so I appreciate you taking the time to join us and listen in. This is our fourth Empire Builders webinar. So I don't know how many of you are repeat joiners. If you are, thanks so much for continuing to support us. If not, welcome. So just a quick little bit about ApplePie Capital and why we do this and who we are. ApplePie is a franchise lender only. We only lend to franchise businesses. We have secured over 3 billion in loans over the past 10 years to over 200 brands. So we've been very fortunate to work with a lot of amazing brands, and we've been doing this for the last decade now. Like I said, we're dedicated only to franchising. So as a result, we understand your needs. We take a consultative approach to your specific project, and we work with franchisees of all shapes and sizes. So whether it's your first unit or whether you're on unit number 25, we likely have a good fit for you. So we try to understand exactly what you're looking for and place you with a loan that makes sense for you. We do that through our conventional ApplePie Core loan, or we also look at possibly SBA financing, equipment-specific loans, remodel loans, that sort of thing. So like I said, something for everybody, just depending on where you're at in your growth journey. So now into the reason why you're here. We'll introduce our panelists. We've got two really successful, awesome franchisees with us. We've got Alpesh Trivedi. He is a multi-unit franchisee with My Salon Suite. He's been in franchising since 2017. He's got 8 units open, and he's where I'm at. He's in the Michigan territory in the Great Lakes region and growing. And then we've got Frank Wetegrove. He is also a multi-unit franchisee with Camp Bow Wow. He's been doing this a long time. He's since 2007, so over 18 years in franchising. He's got 5, eventually 6 units open, so 1 in the early stages of development. So these two have a lot of great knowledge that they're going to share with us. I'm Samantha Holt. I'm with ApplePie. I've been here since 2017, and I manage our sales operations and all of our relationship managers at ApplePie. And once in a while, I do this webinar. Okay, we can get into the questions. So both Frank and Alpesh, you have similar numbers of units. So you differ in the length of time that you've been doing this, but from an operations standpoint, you're in a similar spot as far as how many units you're managing. How did your involvement change from when you're just starting out, unit number 1, until now? So more specifically, I guess, what operational decisions did you make during your growth journey that you feel are key contributors to how successful you are now? I don't know if you want to flip a coin, if maybe we can start with Frank.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. During the process of me speaking, you'll hear me talk a little bit about my time in the military and what I call my civilian career, which is any job outside of the military. I pretty much would rather start with an analogy, and I look at it this way. I think that my first vocation basically gave me my appetite. And I say that because I figure, the more I want to eat, the more money that I would want to make. So I look at that as, the first location is like my main serving. The second location might be my dessert. The third location might be a glass of wine. And so I look at it that way because that's the way my appetite works. So I'm going to go back a little bit and talk about this. When we first got into our business, we had 4 children, 2 toddlers, a bun in the oven that miraculously happened as busy as we were. But at that time, I had, again, a civilian job, a real job, and while trying to serve in the military. My wife was taking the toddlers to work with her every single day. While I was attempting to be all I can be 34 years in the Army. You know, we brought our dog Zeke with us, and he was our interviewer dog, and every dog has to be interviewed. So the whole family basically came to work if you weren't in school or had another job. And so it wasn't until about 5 years ago that I left the military and my civilian career and you know, just basically focused on Camp Bow Wow. I bring all this up because in business, you know, we have to sacrifice and family time, especially, and you know, running it includes, you know, the new locations. The new locations created the need for additional time to get those units up and running. But since we have had people that have stuck with us over the years, you know, it has gotten a little bit, you know, a little bit easier to open up our future units. The other thing I would say also is that when you master, and I consider to be, I feel like we completely mastered our first location. And you ask yourself, you know, is there more? And another question you ask, you know, can I replicate the same process? Can I be at two places at one time? And the answer we all know is no. But you can mold one or two people and make them, as you've heard in, you know, in the movies, many me's. And if you play your cards right, you can create those many me's. You know, you have to find someone as passionate as you are for the business, and you have to pay them well because, in essence, you know, they are you when you know when you're not there. If you need a break, if you want to go on vacation or you can't come in, you're sick, whatever the case may be, you really need to depend on that person in your absence. And you shouldn't compromise your, you know, your leadership by bringing people in who don't represent you in the business. You know, you have to get the right people. You have to take care of them as much as feasibly possible, you know, and don't let them, you know, walk out, you know, for the wrong reason. So going back to the initial question, when we felt again that we had mastered the location, we decided, you know what, we do believe we can replicate this process. We do believe we can be just as successful. And it turned out that we were just as successful, which enabled us to continue moving on to, you know, our third, fourth, fifth, and now our sixth location.
Awesome. Thanks, Frank. Super helpful insights. Alpesh, how does that compare to how your journey has been? What are the differences and how have you approached your growth?
Yeah, so this is Alpesh from Michigan. My background is I had a 9 to 5 corporate job. My background academically is I'm an engineer, mechanical engineer to be specific. Worked in automotive industry for many years. You know, since 1991 to be exact. And then wanted to grow after 2008. Big, big, I would say, jolt in the economy. I decided that I need a multiple source of income. And then that is how I kind of started thinking in the direction of owning a business. In the beginning, I joined a small franchise company, which I had my wife manage. For the most part, I was supporting her. I was a 50% partner. And I had ambition to grow in that company, but then somehow it was not going to jive with my, my potential, my liking. So in 2015, I started looking at different options, and through a franchise consultant friend choice, I came across franchise My Salon Suite. They were offering me a couple options, which was like a semi-absentee model. They were suggesting My Salon Suite, beauty and wellness industry. My Salon Suite kind of, something I thought will fit better with me. So I joined that. I chose that option. In 2016, I signed my agreement with them. And right away, it was a good growing brand, good growing, like a business, I should say, Salon Sweets. A little bit new, almost I would say in the infancy stage. Um, the other big player was Sola and Phoenix. So there was a good blueprint, good recipe. So my Salon Sweet, even though my Salon Sweet was in an infancy, there was a lot of know-how, and we joined that with those things. Just like Frank, my first location was my learning curve. I didn't quit my job at that point. I thought I'll just manage, uh, this business and keep my job, which was challenging at times. And then slowly, I did take some initial risk. Before I opened my first location, I had signed up for my second one, which was a little bit of a risky move, but I had enough income to take that risk. Uh, you know, so I did that. Thankfully, so um, first one, as I said, was a lot of learning with construction. This particular business is a very much heavy in the front, meaning that you have a good location, you make a right deal for the lease or buy. You have to make sure that you can go through the construction phase and the initial marketing phase without too much of a hiccup. And then I was able to do that. It was challenging for me to fill up my first location. It took me almost a year to break even. So that was a little challenging, as I said. But it did break even in about 6 to 9 months. I opened my first location, and then it kept going. After doing two by 2018, 2 years into the franchise world, I was able to secure more locations. And then the cash flow from the first two was feeding the growth. Uh, when I when I opened my third location, just before that, I quit my job, so I was able to dedicate more time. And then cash flow was important. I was very happy with Apple Pie because our brand, our business was not qualified for SBA loan. So Apple Pie really came in handy, and there are good options for the financing. So it really was a key item for me to to grow in my business. I'll be very honest with you. And then I kept growing. My third location was a bigger location, uh, almost twice as big as my first two from a footprint point of view. And as I said, at that point, I had quit my job, and I was able to dedicate more time. The cash flow was good. We had a COVID. COVID was a little hiccup, but thankfully it all worked out. As a matter of fact, the COVID helped our business model from a social distancing point of view and things like that. And then at that point, I decided to change my operations when I'm like, I need to hire people and train people. I cannot do it on my own if I want to keep growing. Initially, I had joined the franchise with a multiple of a 3 location, which I had uh, amended to 6 locations in 2019. And then subsequently in 2022, I added a few more. So now I have added about, I hold the license for 20 locations. Almost every year, we have been able to open 1 to 1.5 locations. So right now we are at 8 locations. Uh, I have hired managers for operations. I have a full-time guy for maintenance because with all the multiple locations, we need to address the issues very quickly. So I hired a full-time maintenance person. We have an office admin. I outsource my accounting or bookkeeping, I should say. Uh, we have a good help from our franchise for marketing. So with all these resources, I am able to still keep growing organically. In 2022, I decided another little bit of a courageous move, I would say, to go out of Michigan into more Great Lakes region. So we have entered Chicagoland for our growth. And again, it's very organic. My son, who just graduated in 2023, finished his business degree. He has taken that location and he is helping me to grow that location, and we will add a couple more depending on the timing and the opportunity. But it's been a very good journey. Some risk taking, great help from ApplePie, great help from franchise, growth in the industry. I'll be very honest with everybody that since 2022, there has been a lot of mom and pop that entered the market, and that has made it a little bit challenging. So we have to keep our secret sauce. We have to keep improving our, our expertise and offer something to the customer. Our customers are the beauty professionals. So we have to keep offering them something unique that nobody else is offering, which we are. And in my case, the secret sauce is a community feel. Even though they are coming in an individual suite, we do offer them a great community vibe, which is actually very important for our industry. So I figured that out in my first 2 to 3 years of being in the business. But it's a great business. I think there is always some hard work and risk taking which requires you to grow. But if you keep doing that and manage your risk well, and if you utilize the resources and keep learning and change your method of working, there's definitely a growth prospect in in any business.
Yeah, thanks, Alpesh. That's super helpful. And I think it does speak to some of the differences in your business model compared to Frank's brand, like a Camp Bow Wow, and some of the other franchise models. So you have more of a business to business model with the suites, and for Frank, your growth has been a little bit different, right? Like there, Alpesh mentioned that he signed his second franchise agreement before the first one was even open, which is what some might say kind of a risky decision, and it worked out. It sounds like, but for you and your growth, it's been a different journey. So can you speak to what factors you took into consideration to when it came to, okay, I'm ready to open my next one? You said your first one was like, kind of a learning curve, and then what do you look at when you say, all right, I'm ready to open unit number 2, 3, or 4? Is it more just when the locations come up, or are you looking at cash flow, and how are you making those decisions?
Yeah. So, I'm going to speak about several things here real quick. One of them is compensation. So I'm going to say it this way. For the first 2 years, we didn't take a single penny out of our business. So we didn't run any weird things through the books or anything like that. Not that we're doing it today. I'm just saying we didn't do anything like that. So any profit that we made, we chose to use that money to market our facility. As I mentioned earlier, I was still working. I had a civilian job. I had my job in the military, so we didn't have to take any money, which was a blessing for us. So I'll start it that way. We didn't take any compensation. When we look at servicing the community, we were involved with the community, with the franchise customers, our customers. I was overly involved and with the franchisor. That's just who I am. I've always been involved with the franchisor. I've always taken a position that the more involvement I have, the better it is for me, because I can help make decisions and steer the course. I've been on just about every single committee or franchise group physically possible, and I know people are tired of me, but it is the way that it is. The other thing that I contributed to our success is we really did, as Alpesh mentioned, we really leaned on the franchisor. The franchisor taught us pretty much everything that we needed to know. There were some things along the way that we taught each other, and I appreciate the fact that the franchisor themselves were willing to listen to the experience that we had in the field. So when it was formulating new ideas and things like that, they were always very welcome to the suggestions. I've also brought up, finding the mini me's, and that's crucial, because when you can't spread yourself more than one facility at a time. And so we had to find those many me's. And you know, with my wife wanting to spend more time with the family, and then me doing my full-time job, we had to find those many me's. And we've had a lot of success. We've lost some along the way, unfortunately. But just like anything, you know, people grow up and they decide to do different things. You know, just about every single person that we've had in leadership positions, you know, we still talk to today. We still have a great relationship with them, you know, despite the reasons why they, you know, left us. You know, when it comes to, you know, the financial reasons themselves, you know, we kept our labor to earnings ratio extremely low. And when it comes to, you know, going to the bank and telling them that you understand how this business works, and you're showing, you know, a good profit, as also as Alpesh has mentioned, it's really important that you have that, because they're not going to loan you money if you're not doing very well. So, you know, we didn't go crazy on spending a bunch of money. I've already talked about, you know, we didn't add a bunch of weird expenses to our business. You know, we had to show that greater profit in order to get, you know, number two and further loans. You know, and that just demonstrated that we knew what we were doing and how to run it. The other thing that I'll mention too is, you know, finding the right SBA lending partner. You know, back then it was Funding Solutions, which has now been bought out by ApplePie. And I had a really good relationship with the founder of Funding Solutions. You know, it turned out to be very valuable. And I had that one-on-one, many one-on-one conversations with the individual and the owner. And I felt like if I were, you know, part of his family. And the lender knew me, I knew him, but most importantly, they knew this business. And that is so critical. You know, them knowing the business was 80% of the effort to secure the capital. So therefore, it was completely, you know, invaluable that I had that relationship. And so I'll pass it on to Alpesh, or what other questions you might have, Samantha.
Yeah, thanks, Frank. So to sum it up, it sounds like you were just over prepared in a good way, right? Like you were making sure that you understood your business, that it was clear to the lenders that you understood your business, that your bank account was in a good spot, cash flow, that sort of thing. And simultaneously you're building a relationship with either one lender or possibly more than one, even though it wasn't necessarily needed in your case, but finding a bank that understands the brand and the business model, and eliminates half the battle in trying to secure capital. So just kind of getting all of your ducks in a row from that standpoint.
Yep.
Alpesh, one of the ways that you grew, I know, is through conversions. And I know there's pros and cons to that. So when I say conversions, just for the larger group, meaning like finding an unbranded location, in his case, an unbranded salon, or a group of unbranded salons, and converting them to the My Salon Suite franchise system. So can you speak to what you learned in that experience and some of the pros and cons that you encountered?
Yeah, definitely. I think the key word is learning. Uh, we have to keep learning. We have to keep evolving, and things change. We are in a very dynamic world, so sometimes you learn something doesn't mean that it is forever. I mean, it is like you're done with it. You have to keep learning. Uh, this industry, the salon industry, the beauty industry itself, it's been decades old, but the suites are new, and it's challenging for us to convince a beauty professional who has been doing this for even 20, 30, 40 years sometimes, to convince them that, hey, if you change your business from a regular salon, commission salon, into a salon suite, you will make twice as much money. So we have to convince them. Uh, that is a key point. How do we convince them? How do we take the roadblocks away from their decision to change from whatever they are doing? Could be as low as 1 year or as high as 30 years. How do we take the roadblock away so they can change from whatever they are doing to a sweet concept. Uh, and when I say take the roadblocks away, we have to be creative. I mean, sometimes it could be a work-life balance that the professional is looking for. Sometimes it could be, like a size of the suite. Sometimes they want to share. So there are so many things we offer to mitigate their risk, to attract them into our model. And that is the learning part. There is no answer. You just learn from them. If you keep your eyes and ears open, you can learn from them and then implement those ideas. And then after implementing the ideas, also you learn, okay, did it work, didn't work. That is how I have been able to do it. uh, Cash flow is very important. You need to be cash flow positive. Sometimes you take a risk, but you need to have the calculated risk type of mindset where you do not you know uh, chew more than you can eat type of thing. um, that is very important. Relationship, as Frank said, was is very key. I mean, in general it is very key in life, but in a business world it's very important to build relationship with the key stakeholders. uh, Franchisor is a big one. I'm also able to collaborate with them. My knowledge also has been very collaborative. Just to give you one example, in our particular business, shampoo, every suite has a shampoo station installed. And through through the professionals I learned, okay, if we do a stand behind shampoo where they can go behind the bowl, it helps them with their back, with the access. They can, because now many of them work 20-30 minutes from the bowl. So I learned that part through professionals. I was able to implement those ideas with help of franchise, collaborate with the key vendor who makes all the millwork, the cabinets. So that is the way we network with them, build relationship with them. Same thing goes for for Apple Pie. I was able to build relationship with Ryan, who is the my manager, who is involved in funding. I will pick up the phone and I can easily call Ryan. If he's busy, he will call me back within the same day, and that is very important because when you are funding, you need all the documents, and then it's a process. So uh, it's important to build the relationship. One second.
We might have lost Alpesh for a second. I'll give him a minute in case he's walking around.
Sorry about that, guys. So I just had to talk to somebody for a second. So that was the key point, that we need to ensure that we build relationship with the key stakeholders, uh, and manage the business. There is no, of course, franchise will provide some guideline, but you have to kind of keep learning, as I was telling earlier, and implement those ideas. Uh, Take a calculated risk, and that is the way I've been able to grow in this business.
And when you were with the conversions, was it harder to get adoption from the people that were already there to convert? Like it sounds like you learned a lot from them, but did you have resistance there or?
Yeah, there was, as I said, many of them don't know what is to rent a suite. They have been working in a regular salon for all their life, and they are like, okay, even though they make more money, uh, they don't take a risk. So we have to kind of explain them, hey, if you do this model, you will make more money. This is the way you do it. And we have a lot of resources, to start up a business, how to form an LLC, how to, like go about getting their insurance. We have all these resources which we can help them with. We kind of, it's called onboarding. So we do help them with onboarding, and then take the risk factor away. We do make them sign 1 year lease, but we do let them know, hey, if there is something that happens which is unforeseen in the life, uh, you can terminate the lease with like 6 to 8 weeks notice, and we have done all these things. And that is how we create the impression in the community because there are like many competitors, but when they see that, how can we be different than them? And then we get a lot of referral because of that reason. Salon industry is very close knit, so our existing members, when they know they are happy with us, they will refer their friends, and then that's how we also get more professionals to come. Another thing we have learned and implemented in last couple of years is we are not limiting ourselves to only beauty industry. We have learned that it's a shared space concept. So we also reach out to a physical therapist uh, or a boutique, for the dresses, or a dentist who want to do the teeth whitening, teeth straightening type of use. So we are not like just limiting ourselves to only beauty industry. We are also expanding into other things. That's also part of the learning, and it kind of one leads to other. So now that I have one physical therapist, maybe I will get more. So no, that's how it works. So uh, just keep on learning. How do we pass that knowledge to our members, we call them. We are a business to business. Um, we also ensure that our business owners, all the professionals, they feel they are on an equal level playing field. There is nobody bullying anybody. The community is very non-toxic. If there is a toxicity in the community, we take care of that right away. Uh, Again, these are not the things you will know from anybody, but you learn and then you implement those things, and that's how you can keep the business growing.
Makes perfect sense. Thanks, Alpesh. Shifting gears a little bit because both of you have been in this for at least 10 years, or well, almost 10 years. And then obviously, Frank, you've been in it for almost 2 decades at this point. When it comes to economic cycles and going through highs and lows, uh, what advice do you have for people who maybe are in that growth phase and they're wanting to grow but are nervous about just rising costs and just maybe some uncertainty in the market? Like, how have you approached that, and what are the things that you've learned? I'll start with you, Frank, because I know you went through COVID and had a lot of changes after that. What advice would you have for people to plan and what to do and what not to do?
Yeah, I should make sure I wasn't on mute. So, I mean, I go back to what I first spoke about before. We didn't take anything, the first couple of years, and when we finally did, it really wasn't that much. We tried to utilize our earnings to show, or our revenue to show that we knew exactly what we were doing. Things were extremely stressful during COVID because we ended up shutting down 3 of our locations because we just weren't getting any people, any customers, and a couple of the ones that we did allow to stay open, we knew that we were basically helping the community, taking care of their dogs, the first responders and people like that. And it was good. I mean, we were very fortunate that we had PPP money. And then we were very fortunate to have, idle money, along the way. I, you know, it has been troublesome, and that's why we've had to postpone, opening up this last location because, due to the economy, due to everything that we're all faced post-pandemic, things have been really rough. Our business hasn't gotten back to where it needs to be, or the once lucrative days that we saw from before. So we're having to work harder. We're having to work harder for the disposable income from people. We have to, engage more with our clients. We have to engage even the pups that we take care of. And more importantly, we even have to engage our employees because, the employees as well, coming back from COVID, the cost of labor really went up. The cost of materials have gone up, as we all know, if you're looking at this, the cost of transportation, raw materials to include, making into materials, steel, and we use a lot of stainless steel in our locations. So again, it has become very troublesome from that perspective. So again, looking at it, globally, we're trying to look at, ways to make more money, with the same client, pushing that revenue a little bit further, trying not to raise our prices too much, but trying to keep up with the pace of all the bills that are happening, and that balance is extremely difficult to hold. I think we've kind of got it licked, unless the economy worsens in any way. I think that we're going to be good, but again, if we can just get the interest rates down, it would be a heck of a lot better. I don't know if I have anything more to offer, but hopefully that's a good way to think about it.
Yeah, definitely lots of considerations for you specifically. I think because people are working from home and don't necessarily need as much doggy daycare as they did pre-pandemic, and obviously not everyone's business model was affected in that way. Some were affected in a positive way, and some for a negative way. But just maybe being a little bit more cautious or conservative about your growth decisions to plan for uncertainty, it sounds like is kind of your overall message there. And being agile as far as what can I do to get more money out of the same doing what I'm doing now, and what can I add to get, to still improve my profits in the face of maybe it's like tightening margins for a lot of other reasons. We do have a couple questions in the chat, and I know I have a few more things to touch on, but I want to make sure we get people's questions answered too. One was, what does your organization look like? Does each store have a manager? And then do you have an area manager overseeing the managers? If yes, how many? I'll let you start with this, Frank, and then go to Alpesh, because Alpesh is a little different in this way. So Frank, can you speak to how your management structure is?
Yes. So initially, every single location would have a manager. And if it's a larger location, it would have an assistant manager. Running two locations really wasn't that bad. But when we started, opening up the third plus, we realized that, it would be really nice for us to have like a regional manager or regional director. And that's what we did. We were very fortunate to have had people that grew into the position, that didn't mind taking on the additional responsibility. But remember, our organization is a little bit different in the sense that, we're open 7 to 7, basically 7 days a week. And so there's really no time off. The managers get called, into all kinds of different situations, whether they're off or not. And then what happened is, or what's happened, in our case, the regional managers or regional directors fall into the same context. They get called even on their days off. So what I've learned in the past is that, try to have people call me if the regional director is off, to give that regional director some time off, as opposed to thinking they never get away from, Camp Bow Wow. So that's the way our structure has been. But I have lost a regional manager, and the last one that I lost, here's how I changed it. I decided, I'm going back to my Army days, right? The Army days say that, you shouldn't be held hostage, by a single entity. Every single soldier needs to be, carry a rifle and being able to shoot to save himself and his peers and his fellow soldiers. So I've kind of adopted that same mentality, and that is the sense that instead of having one main regional director, what I've done today is I've split my 5 locations as we speak today. 3 of them are governed by one person, 2 are governed by another person. And each of those 2 people not only are responsible for their respective locations, But the way I've done it is the one regional manager might be more responsible for marketing. Another of the regional managers might be more, focused on training, but they all know each other's jobs. So therefore, when one of those two people leave, and they probably will leave one day, I won't be so, I won't be so floored when they leave and then have to get back into the business. Because when I lost that one regional manager, I had to jump back into the business because there wasn't anybody trained to do that. So again, I say that because I think what I'm doing is right. And that way, again, if I lose a regional manager, the other regional manager can step up, to all locations, and then we train another person to take over, the assistant regional manager. But again, that's how I found success.
Just avoiding a single point of failure at all costs.
Yes.
I love the military analogies. Alpesh, you have I don't believe a manager for each location, but you have with your partner, I think, established some, like speaking to your strengths and your partner's strengths, you've divided, conquered your operations in that way. So
Yeah.
from a management standpoint, how do you approach that?
So I do have business partner, and he focuses on initial thing like leasing, purchasing, financing, any legal matters type of thing. I'm more into design, construction, operations, and we do have operations manager who's a more senior guy, and he's like my main uh, head operations manager, and then I do have another operations manager who reports to him. So we have two operations manager with a hierarchical structure where we have one senior person, one little bit junior, a full-time maintenance person. Um, when I was doing a lot of construction, I had a full-time construction manager to help me with because I did GC my own projects. I never hired a general contractor. I GC'd my projects, so that also helped me achieve the timing, the quality, and the efficiency. Also from financial point of view, it was really good. I do have outsourced bookkeeping, marketing is outsourced, um, and then we have a full-time office admin also for paperwork. So this is the way I have structured my organization. Um, it has helped me to grow properly. And then, as I said, with the new market, at least in the beginning, I have my son managing that market, and he is the operations manager there. So these are the way we have done it. As we do more and more location, we will keep, updating our organization to meet the need. But yeah, that's how we are doing it as of now.
Got it. Thank you so much. Going back to other questions, we don't have any more in the chat, but of course, if anyone has them, feel free to type in the Q&A and we'll still leave a few minutes at the end. Going to the topic of lease negotiations, or I know, Frank, you have some leasehold and some where you own the real estate. Do you have any in the current environment, I guess, now, what are your tips or strategies or maybe things not to do when you're growing, when it comes to how to negotiate your lease? Maybe it's related to TI allowances or just other terms in the lease that people should avoid or that they should look for in order to help them grow.
Yes, thank you for the question. I mean, I think that anybody needs to make sure they've researched their market. They need to understand the current market rates. If you get a great, commercial realtor, he or she's going to understand that. But you need to understand that yourself when you're trying to negotiate, so that it's not that the commercial realtor is going to, run you over or anything like that. But it is good to know the research in your market and see what the current rates are. It's extremely important. Regarding tenant improvement that you brought up, I think that in our case, our building, I don't know how much Alpesh's square feet typically is, but our square feet is at the very least 6,000. Some of the locations are up to 14,000 square feet, so at least 6 up to 14,000. My average is probably give or take about 10,000, I guess, 10,500. I have tried to lean towards buying real estate at this point, but I will say that, negotiating in a lease space, aim higher for your TI allowance from the landlord to cover the new prevailing, construction costs. Do your due diligence on those types of, materials and the budget as well. Consider amortization in the sense that, maybe you can get more from, the TI allowances above the normal. And the reason I say this is because maybe if you don't have the money, or you don't have the money in a loan to be able to cover those, maybe the landlord would put more money into your TI allowances and then spread that in some type of extra amortization in your leasehold payments, over the course of so many years. So again, I'll bring up, rising construction costs. You just have to be very diligent about that. You need to think about more than less. Every single camp bow wow that I've spoken to in the recent past has said, this was what they were told it was going to be, and it's at least 10 or 15% more. So you have to think about that. You have to think about, your plan for contingencies on growth. Are there going to be additional rising, costs, especially, what's going on today? We don't really know what's going to happen with some of these tariffs, and it's a little scary for all of us. But try to have a contingency plan, and then just be able to, adjust your business model. I'm sure that most of us that are in a franchise brand, you have to do kind of what the brand franchise requirements are. But as an example, in Camp Bow Wow, we don't have to do full grooming. We can just do light grooming, like baths. We're not forced to do training. So you just might want to make sure that you're thinking about those additional services they're going to bring you through. Sometimes it's a lot easier starting with those extra services as opposed to adding them along the way, because then you have to do more marketing and step up, from that perspective. The last thing I would bring up is, think about your long-term strategy. Make sure that you're looking at the property, where it is geographically, in your city, in the location. Make sure that you're factoring that into your decision making. And the most important thing I'll tell you is building the relationships, whether it's with entities, in your surrounding area. Maybe it's in your business park or whatever the case may be. But go out and market yourself, and don't be shy. And bring people into understanding what you do, and look for similar kind businesses, that can supplement you, and you can supplement them in some way, and get the word out.
Yeah, that's great advice. Thanks, Frank. Any differences or anything to add there, Alpesh, from your point of view?
Yeah, I think it is important to know our business model. Where does it's very important to know the business pro forma. So that's an advantage we have with a franchise model, where we can get the pro forma from franchise, so we know what works and what doesn't work. So I'm at the site right now. This site, my newest site under construction. Landlord wanted X amount of dollars for rent. I'm renting the place, and it was a Buffalo Wild Wing before we took it. It was Buffalo Wild Wing is expanding into a bigger space in the same site, in the same center. So this one was sitting empty for last 3 years, and landlord wanted, like $25 per square foot per year rent. And my pro forma says that for this particular location, I cannot be profitable unless I get in in mid-teens. So that is how I was able to explain to the landlord. And I said, you are not just looking at renting and then forgetting, and I'm not doing a 3-year lease or 5-year lease. I'm doing 10-year lease with 2 options to renew for 10 more years. So I'm here for 20 years. Why don't you come and see what I'm doing? So he's out of state. He's from Florida. So he was visiting in Michigan. I took him to my open location, showed him what we do. It was a nice busy Saturday morning, and he saw my open location. He saw all these 39 professionals, working, and he was inspired. And then he got the real idea. He was able to feel it, and then he said, "Yeah, I will work with you." And then we were able to sign the lease. So we have to really know our pro forma, which again, as I said, franchise comes into play. Uh, we have to, just because we like a location doesn't mean that we can just sign and then not be profitable. Uh, and then what we do is when we negotiate, and more so my partner than me, but I'm also involved, is that we are very flexible. So some landlord will say, okay, they don't want to give too much TI. They want to just, hold the rent. Some of them are like, okay, I'll give you TI. And then some of them are like, okay, I don't want to do this, but I can give you a free time. So we are like, some landlord will say, okay, I will give you, I don't want to work anything. I'll just give you the property as is. I will not do demolition. I will not do any other things. This particular property I am at right now is in that category. So we are very flexible with landlord when we negotiate. So that gives them a lot of flexibility to work with us, and that is how we can win the project. And that is what we have done. It's important to know your pro forma. It is important to be flexible. It is important to build a relationship with the key stakeholders, and then keep learning. That's the bottom line. So that's how we have been able to grow in a healthy way.
Yeah, that's great advice on knowing your projections and knowing what you can tolerate and what you can't, and just being ready to negotiate. Okay, we've got about 5 minutes left. I think we've answered most of the questions in the chat, so we'll do like a quick last minute last question for both of you when it comes to either your best or your worst decision historically. So if you could think back on one thing that was like a make or break, either in a good or a bad way, what would that be in leaving people with that advice?
Okay, yeah, I'll start real quick. So, I think about this all the time. What's my end goal or exit plan? And I didn't really mention this, even though I did say that I'm concentrating more on real estate, and which I am today. So, out of the 2 lease buildings that I have, I own 3, and the fourth, this next one, the fourth one, as far as real estate. I'm going to plan on owning that one as well. But my end goal is to either leave everything to family, so one at a time or all of them at once, depending on what makes sense and what makes the most money. And then otherwise, I would just sell the operating company and keep the real estate, so I'd have some money to live off of and or pass that on to my children. The best and worst decisions, gosh, that's extremely complicated, but I'll try to be quick. The best decision I think I ever made was actually I kept growing and took a little bit of learning from each location, and made it really, a nice profitable business. So I don't have to take, all my money from one. I can spread it all out, which is great. The worst decision I think I've made after these 18 years is that I've never quite given up the reins. I think it's more because I don't know what I would do if I had all the extra free time. But I was on that way until COVID screwed everything up. And yeah, I think that's it, unless there's any other specific questions. I'm going to leave some time for Alpesh.
Yeah, great advice. I love it. What about you, Alpesh?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to give any more like advice, I would say, but I think you really have to know the business. It helps to join a franchise world for that reason. Uh, any new business owner, I would really say that my experience to start a journey from being a 9 to 5, corporate job, being engineer into owning a business, I think I would highly recommend joining a franchise model because there is a good support system, know-how, so you're not starting from the scratch. And then, just like Frank said, and even I can say the same thing, that it's very, very important to be successful in your journey of being a business owner with the very first location. You cannot fail in the first location because it will just, it's very demoralizing, I think, to see that. Even though it happens, we should recover from it, but we should mitigate the risk and try our best to not fail in the first location. And I think first location, rather than making money, should be focusing on how do we learn the business from that location. And if you have that kind of mindset and the willingness to learn, I think having a franchise model, which is a scalable model, going from second, third, fourth location, that is where the fun starts. And then if you keep growing, keep evolving, keep changing your business model, you cannot do the same way you are doing first or second location. You have to keep your changing your business model. How do we get things done from other people? How do we add resources to the business and grow that way? I think that's fun part. And willingness to learn, keep evolving organically. Things are going to change. There'll be a lot of dynamics. Things will be always dynamic. You know, Salon Suite in 2015 is completely different than the Salon Suite in 2025, and it will be completely different in 2035. So we have to keep learning. Things will be always dynamic. If we have this kind of mindset, there is no way we can fail. So that is my 2 cents for everybody.
Yeah, so to sum it up, walk before you run, master that first location, and everything else can become a little bit easier, right? Learn all your
Exactly.
first
because
location.
because in the first location, even if you're not making money, that the wealth of knowledge we are accumulating is also a huge value.
Yep. Well, and also I think what I've taken away from this and other webinars, like we've had people on here, every time I talk to them, they're in the unit, they're making bread or they're doing what they, even if they have 10, 20 locations. So I think the other takeaway is find a brand that you like, that you want to be involved in, because Frank has been doing this for 18 years and he still has not turned over the reins and is still in the camps. And same with you, Alpesh, you're at the site right now. So you don't truly ever get fully away from being in the unit. So I think that that seems important. Listen, I know we're 1 minute over time. I appreciate everybody staying on with us. There were some great questions. One or two of the questions in the chat, I did tell the attendees I'll answer those offline just to make sure I can answer them thoroughly. But you both have been great. I appreciate your time and I appreciate everybody joining us. We usually do this quarterly, so look for our next invitation, and we have new panelists every time. And
Yeah.
I'll leave you guys with that. Thank you, everybody.